So this happened to my friend, which of course this has been told by a perspective of a male. Now, I'm not going to say his name for privacy reasons, but he was around his mid-20s when this took place. This happened sometime in 2015 when he was around 25 at the time. Now, my friend was working at a storage facility as a security guard during the night shift, and most of the time he looked at storage units to make sure that everything was where it should be and that no one was hiding in there. A lot of homeless people like to hide in there, so that's why he has been constantly checking just to make sure there was no homeless person hiding in there. One of the nights when he was doing his night shift, he was walking around doing his usual rounds when he ended up looking to see that one of the storage units was open a crack. Now, at first he thought that it could have been a security guard, but of course that wasn't the case though, as no one was out and the other security guard was at the other side of the building. My friend ended up walking down there and he ended up opening the door just a little bit to find what appeared to be a sleeping homeless person. It appeared to be a man and he was in his 50s and he seemed to have a gun with him. Honestly, he ended up going back outside and he ended up locking the storage room with the key just to be on the safe side so he doesn't try and get out, and he ended up calling 911. Surprisingly though, when the police arrived, the man didn't try to get away or anything. He just accepted his defeat and then he just was moved off. Honestly, that was one of the most creepiest and disturbing things that ever happened to him, because the storage unit facility was usually very chill, but however though, homeless people occasionally come in just to hide from the cold, which is very common, especially with the fact that it's been getting very cold outside. Now my friend doesn't even know how this homeless person got in there, or did he ever manage to get in with the key, or maybe he snuck in. Those thoughts still go in his mind. But it was a relief to find that he was okay, but no one was injured since then. It was later revealed that that man had mental issues, to which is why he ended up being homeless, and he ended up hibernating inside that storage unit facility for a few days now. That would explain why some of the people's belongings ended up getting moved or missing. Still to this day though, my friend still wonders what would have happened to him if that man had noticed he opened the door. Would he have gone up and hurt him or do something much worse? My friend doesn't even want to look at the alternative of what could have happened to him. I used to know someone who used to work at the gym, and apparently he was an instructor there. He usually taught yoga and even some gym, but he mainly did it at a rec center. He used to do it at school about maybe for 10 years, but then he decided to move on. This was before his retirement, so I'm going to keep his name anonymous, but at the same time, we'll call him Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison used to do gym classes, and his schedule would almost always be booked. However, though, one of these times while he was there at the gym, he ended up discovering something that he wished that he never thought that he ever discovered. He was doing his usual gym class, and everything seemed normal. However, one of the students was his favorite student named Becky. Becky used to stay after gym to do more exercise, which of course he stayed at the gym just to observe her. If you think he may be a creep or something, he's not. He is actually Becky's next door neighbor, and she seemed to be pretty chill. However, Mr. Harrison ended up looking over to see that there was someone or something in the corner of his eye that he couldn't make out. At first he thought that it could have been maybe but it didn't look like as if anyone was living there. But of course, with all that being said, he ended up brushing it off as the beginning of just maybe his paranoia. However, while he was doing the gym, he ended up looking at Becky and ended up keeping an eye on her when All of a sudden, he was doing his closing up, and that's when Becky ended up leaving, and she ended up saying goodnight to him. Nothing happened after that, but Becky ended up going missing the next day. Honestly, the gym teacher was confused since Becky was always early in class just to get a head start of the gym. However, it wasn't until maybe a week later when she hadn't shown up at all and was wondering if she was sick or maybe something happened. He ended up trying to phone Becky's parents, but they ended up saying they couldn't find her anywhere, and they even tried calling her cell numerous times, only to go to voicemail. That's when he ended up looking over and ended up seeing that there was something inside the storage unit of the gym. He ended up walking over and opening up the door to reveal that it was Becky's dead body. She looked as if she had been strangled to death and even had some cuts on her. Now, of course, the incident was definitely pretty much stated as to what happened, but he also made a report to the police, and the gym was closed for at least a few weeks. As of that, Harrison doesn't even know who or what had killed Becky, or if somebody was there when she was leaving. All these theories are possible, but Harrison wants to wonder who had killed Becky and how did they manage to get into the gym undetected. That really still gives him chills to this day, and security at that gym has been upped more since then. He doesn't even know who this person is, but he really hopes that person is rotting in jail, or maybe at least been caught. For a bit of context, this actually happened to two friends of mine who were in college at the time of this story, but at this time they both have been two boys and they like to mope around and do some crazy stuff. We'll call them Wesley and Jameson. Jameson and Wesley have been friends since high school, and they've been pretty good pals. However, this took place sometime in 2018 when Jameson and Wesley were having a sleepover at his house. Jameson's parents were okay with the sleepover, and Wesley and him had been getting along just fine. Keep in mind that they were in their early 20s, so they ended up looking around this one storage unit facility that wasn't far from Jameson's house. It was pretty much a storage unit where people can store stuff if they don't have room in their house for it. It's usually like that, so there was nothing really to be afraid of. However, one of the times while they were in the storage unit, they ended up looking to see that there was a red door. Of course, that was where Jameson always wanted to know what was in there, so they ended up thinking that there could be somebody in there. Wesley eventually joked about how there could be a dead body that Jameson would find, and of course Jameson would always replied with, "Oh, shut up." That kind of typical thing from teenage boys. However, they ended up looking over to see that there was some blood dripping down from the storage unit door, and even looked down and realized that there was a pool of blood. This really freaked them out, as there could be a dead body in there, so they ended up deciding to call 911. The cops ended up arriving, opened the storage unit to investigate the area, while Jameson and Wesley were talked to by both parents and as well as the police. As it turns out, there was a serial killer around in the neighborhood and had somehow killed a body what seemed to be a 22-year-old man, and somehow they stuffed him in that storage unit, thinking that no one would notice. And he had been dead there for at most a day or two, so that made the situation even more creepy. Wesley and Jameson never went out at night alone again without their parents, so they never had anything like this happen in their neighborhood. But after this story, though, they really don't know what to really think of who could be responsible for this. They never got updates on who was the killer or anything like that, and eventually the case died down as there were no really much evidence they could really used to prove who was behind that murder in the storage unit. However, the only question is, well, how did that man die? And who was this person that murdered him in that night?